The Keeper's Watch. The beam from Widow's Peak Lighthouse cut through the fog like a knife through gauze, but Marcus knew it wouldn't be enough. Nothing was ever enough out here, where the Atlantic crashed against jagged rocks, and the nearest town was 12 miles down a winding coastal road that disappeared when the mist rolled in. He'd taken a lighthouse keeper position 3 months ago, desperate for solitude after the divorce. The isolation had seemed like salvation then, just him, the light, and the endless rhythm of the sea. But tonight, as October wind howled through the gaps in the stone tower, Marcus understood why the last keeper had left without collecting his final paycheck. The logbook sat open on the desk, its yellowed pages filled with entries dating back to 1887. Marcus had been reading through them during his shifts, fascinated by the meticulous records of weather patterns, ship sightings, and maintenance schedules. But 3 weeks ago, he'd found the entries that changed everything. October 15th, 1892. Keeper James Holloway the Tapping has returned. 3 nights now, always between 2 and 3 a.m., always on the eastern window. There is nothing outside. I have checked repeatedly. October 18th, 1892, I saw her today. Standing on the rocks during low tide, a woman in a gray dress, soaked through, staring up at the light. When I went down to offer help, she was gone. No footprints. No trace. The rocks were dry. October 23rd, 1892, the tapping has become pounding. I can hear her voice now, calling a name I cannot make out. The light flickered for the first time in 5 years. I fear for the ships. I fear for my sanity. October 24th, 1892, this will be my final entry. I cannot. The entry ended there, the pen trailing off into an illegible scratch across the page. Marcus had researched the date. Keeper James Holloway had been found at the base of the Lighthouse Tower on October 25th, 1892. The official report called it an accidental fall. The unofficial whispers in the town archives spoke of something else, a body twisted in ways that suggested he'd been running from something when he fell, or been pushed. Now it was October 23rd, and Marcus finally understood. The tapping had started exactly 3 weeks ago. Subtle at first, a sound he dismissed as tree branches or debris carried by the wind. But there were no trees within 100 yards of the lighthouse, and the tapping came from the eastern window 200 feet above the ground. Tap, tap, tap. Marcus checked his watch. 2:17 a.m., right on schedule. He turned slowly toward the window, his reflection ghostly in the rain-streaked glass. Behind his reflection, he could see the lamp mechanism turning, sending its beam across the black water in steady, rhythmic sweeps. Tap, tap, tap. There's nothing there, he whispered to himself, gripping the edge of the desk. There's nothing there. But then he saw her. She materialized between the sweeps of light, one moment absent, the next hovering outside the window as if standing on invisible ground. Her gray dress clung to her body, water streaming from the fabric despite the 200-foot drop to the rocks below. Her hair hung in dark, wet ropes across her face, but he could see her eyes, pale and luminous and fixed directly on him. Her mouth moved, forming words he couldn't hear over the wind. Then her hand rose, pressing against the glass from the outside. Tap, tap, tap. Marcus stumbled backward, his chair clattering to the floor. His heart hammered against his ribs as he pressed himself against the opposite wall. The woman's face remained pressed to the glass, her breath, somehow, impossibly, fog in the window from the outside. Then she spoke, and this time he heard her voice as clearly as if she stood beside him, a whisper that seemed to come from inside his own head. "Let me in." "No," Marcus breathed. "No, you're not real. You're not." "Let me in, Thomas." The name stopped him cold. Thomas, not Marcus. Who was Thomas? With shaking hands, he grabbed the logbook again. flipping frantically through the earlier entries. There, July 3rd, 1892. Assistant Keeper Thomas Wicklow arrived today to help with the summer shipping season. A good man, though he seems troubled by something he won't speak of. August 12th, 1892. Thomas received a letter today. I found him burning it in the courtyard, weeping. When pressed, he said only that she found me. He has become withdrawn, jumping at shadows. September 30th, 1892. Thomas left today without warning, simply vanished in the night, taking nothing but the clothes on his back. I am alone again. Perhaps it is for the best. There was something wrong in his eyes these last weeks, something hollow and haunted. Marcus's blood ran cold. He looked up at the window. The woman was smiling now, water running from her mouth like she was drowning right there in the air. You left me, Thomas, she said. You promised you'd come back. You promised you'd take me away from him. I'm not Thomas. Marcus shouted. My name is Marcus Sullivan. Thomas was here over a century ago. The woman's head tilted at an unnatural angle, her neck bending too far. Liar. Thomas always lies. Thomas promised. The lighthouse lamp flickered. Marcus's training kicked, and immediately the light could not go out. Ships depended on it. He rushed to the mechanism, checking the oil reservoir, the gears, the rotation system. Everything was functioning perfectly, but the light continued to flicker with increasing urgency. Behind him, he heard the eastern window slide open. That was impossible. The windows were sealed, painted shut decades ago against the corrosive salt air. But when Marcus turned, the windows stood wide open, curtains billowing in wind that carried the smell of brine and decay. The woman was climbing through, her movements jerky and wrong, like a marionette controlled by an amateur puppeteer. I drowned waiting for you, Thomas, she said, water pouring from her mouth with each word, pooling on the floor. Every day I stood on those rocks, watching for your boat. Every night I dreamed you'd come. And when I couldn't wait anymore, when Father said he'd never let me leave, I walked into the water. She took a step forward, her waterlogged dress leaving a dark trail. But you were already gone, already running to your precious lighthouse. So I followed. Marcus backed toward the spiral staircase, his mind racing. He wasn't Thomas. This wasn't his guilt to bear. But the woman, or whatever she had become, didn't seem to care about details like time or identity or truth. I'm sorry, he said, keeping his voice steady despite the terror clawing at his throat. I'm sorry for what Thomas did to you. I'm sorry you were hurt. But I'm not him, and I can't give you what you want. The woman stopped, her head snapping upright with a sound like cracking ice. For a moment, her features shifted, becoming clearer. She was young, maybe 20, with a face that must have been beautiful before the water claimed it. Beneath the supernatural horror, Marcus saw the echo of a real person, a real tragedy. Where is he? She asked, and for the first time, her voice sounded almost human. Where's Thomas? Marcus swallowed hard. Dead. He's been dead for over 100 years. Everyone from that time is gone. The woman's face crumpled, and she released a sound that was part wail, part sob, part something inhuman that made Marcus's bones ache. The lighthouse lamp flickered wildly, the beam spinning erratically across the water. Then who will remember? She cried. Who will know what he did? Who will know I existed? Understanding crashed over Marcus like a wave. She wasn't trying to hurt him. She was trying to be remembered, to have her story told, to prove that she had lived and loved and died and mattered. I will, Marcus said quietly. Tell me your name. Tell me your story. I'll make sure people know. The woman stared at him, water still streaming from her hair and clothes. Then, slowly, she began to speak. Her name was Eleanor Marsh. She'd been the daughter of the harbor master In the town below, Thomas Wicklow had courted her the summer. He worked at the Lighthouse, promised to take her away from her abusive father, then disappeared when a man threatened him. Eleanor had walked into the sea on October 24th, 1892, the same night James Holloway had died. The keeper had seen her ghost and, in his panic to escape, had fallen to his death. As Eleanor spoke, her form began to fade, becoming translucent in the lamplight. By the time she finished, Marcus could see through her to the window beyond. "Will you remember?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper now. "I will," Marcus promised. "I'll write it all down. Your story won't be forgotten." Eleanor Marsh smiled, a real smile this time, sad but peaceful, and then she was gone, dissipating like morning mist. The window slammed shut. The lighthouse lamp stabilized, its beam cutting clean and true through the darkness. Marcus stood alone in the light room, shaking, soaked with seawater that had somehow appeared on his clothes. He sat down at the desk, opened the logbook to a fresh page, and began to write. October 23rd, 2024. Keeper Marcus Sullivan. Her name was Eleanor Marsh. Outside, the sea continued its eternal rhythm against the rocks, but the tapping never came again. And somewhere in the darkness, Marcus liked to think, a girl who'd been waiting for over a century finally found her way home.